December the 3rd, 2024. At this time, I'll ask the City Clerk, Beth Davis, to please call the roll.
Commissioner Pam Smithwright.
Here.
Commissioner Sharon Neesmith. Here. Mayor Tom Watson.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Mark Caslen.
Here.
Commissioner Bob Glenn.
Here. This time, you please stand for the invocation and the pledge if you're able. Commissioner Bob Glenn.
Bow your heads in prayer or silent meditation, whichever is your preference. Dear Heavenly and gracious Father, we thank you for all the blessings you provide to our community and to each of us individually each and every day. In this holiday season, let us remember that you are the reason for the season. Let us also bless and give comfort to the less fortunate among us in our community in any way that we can. Bless this community, Lord. Let it continue to be a font of caring and concern for those in need. Lift up our public works employees, our 911 team in fire and police, and all of our city workforce for the wonderful work that they do to make our city a beautiful, shining city on a river. And finally, Lord, lift up our military personnel across the globe who protect our freedoms across the way. And thank you for all of the blessings you provide to us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
And now the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The next item on the agenda is to consider the audit report. I'm going to call on City Manager because I believe he's got something to show you.
I do, Mayor. I have a few introductory comments, and then we'll welcome our auditor to the podium. In Chapter 91A of the Kentucky Revised Statutes, the city is required to be audited each year. The audit is done to provide both you as the Board of Commissioners and to the public accountability, transparency, and assurance that the city's financial affairs are handled appropriately. The city's audit firm is Alexander Thompson Arnold PLLC, and Malcolm McNeil III is the managing partner at the firm, and he is our lead auditor. So Mike is here to provide a report for the city's 23-24 fiscal year audit.
Thank you, Nate. Can you all hear me okay? Mm-hmm. Is the presentation loaded, Beth? Okay. Where do I point this? I don't remember. Okay. Oh, there we go. It works. Magic. Anyway, we start out and we go through and we analyze processes and key steps, and we assess audit risk. And when we do the audit, we look at just not the city and the books. We have to look at the regulatory climate, economic climate, other risks such as your concentration of taxpayers and the other factors, that 800-pound gorillas out there, your pension and OPEB liabilities, which hopefully will go away at some point. We go through and we do our risk assessment. We look at the control environment, the control activities, and if you look at this graph, it's kind of like ISO 9000 for those of you in manufacturing, but the big factor in there in our audit, what determines is how well things are monitored internally, and that's things are monitored very well, so that makes our job a little less difficult. The comprehensive financial report, that's a huge document, but it consists of the transmittal letter, the management's discussion and analysis where Angela explains why things are the way they are, and the financial section, and the statistical section, which is relied on primarily by your underwriting agencies. This year is a clean opinion on the financial statements, which means everything's in good order. Another great award is the GFO Certificate of Excellence. It's 43 years consecutively the city's received the Government Finance Officers Association Certificate of Excellence. That speaks highly for your as elected officials as well as your financial staff. And you've got the Distinguished Budget Award for the 25th consecutive year, and the Outstanding Popular Financial Report. Since it's been around for 6 years, you're 6 for 6 on that. So again, that speaks highly of your finance staff. Just some highlights in there. Your net position increased 12.1 million. Net position at June 30th, 2023 is 123.6. It increased to 135.7. And you had total assets and deferred outflows of 424.8 for the city, and liabilities and deferred inflows of 289.1 million. The factors I talked about earlier, the pension liability, this is something that everybody's been wrestling with statewide in the CERS, but as of June 30th, it was 91 million. And this is the first year I can remember that it decreased from 7.5 million to 83.5 million. So that's a significant drop there. And that liability is not anything you'll have to pay all at once. It's actuarially determined. And that's something I think they factor in over 30 years. And then the other thing that went down substantially was your other post-employment benefits liability, which is for retiree health care primarily. That decreased from 24 million to 2.7 million. The governmental funds of the city, you had a combined fund balance of 109.1 million. 42.7 million of that is assigned or it's not available, and unassigned and available for spending. And then you have an unassigned fund balance of 42.8, and this represents 208 days of expenditures. That's indicative of a very healthy city. Rule of thumb is you try to stay at 60 days for the Government Finance Officers Association, so you're well in excess of that. The general fund balance increased 7.6 million. This is the 7th consecutive year it increased. And one thing I'd like to note is the debt of the city increased 11 million from 152.2 to 141.2. So everything's trending in the right direction. Another thing that's indicative of your financial health is your most recent rating by Moody's is A1, and one of the key factors they look at is your fund balance and your cash balances. Those carry 30% of the weight, so that's primarily why your rating is as good as it is. If you look at your change in fund balance, you can see 2021 was quite up, about roughly 8 million. That's due to a lot of the COVID money came in there, as we're aware of, and then everything's just steadily done well from 2022 to 2024 in the general fund. And you can see where your fund balance was. It's increased from 18.9 million in 2020 to 43.2 million. And again, that's a very good trend, and you're in a very solid position. A lot of cities would be very envious of Owensboro if they saw this. As I said earlier in my presentation, your days in fund balance, you can see the GFOA minimum at 60 days. Your unassigned and assigned, you're 209 days on the low side. Again, you've got a lot of reserves in case something would happen. And you know, Murphy's always knocking at the door. I was just telling your city manager, so it's not bad to have those reserves. In the end, the composition of your fund balance, you can see roughly 45% of it is assigned, and you've got some that's non-spendable and then restricted, but that kind of shows you where that is. And then this graph here shows your tax revenue trends, and just with the local economy around here, it's been steady even during COVID. And you can see that everything's on an upward trend each year. Everything's increased, and that's primarily part of the reason the fund balances are so solid here. The pension liabilities, you can see that's kind of fluctuated from year to year. Fortunately for 2024, it's down substantially, which is good to see. That's something that I know the legislature's been wrestling with probably every session. The other things we do, we test compliance with laws and regulations and grants, and we had no findings, no significant audit adjustments. You're one of a handful. We do about 200 municipal audits in my firm, and you're probably one of 5 where we make no adjustments or corrections to the books. So that speaks very highly of Angela and her staff. And we just like to give a shout out to Angela, Danae, Whitney, and Carrie and Deanna. That without them, it'd be really difficult to get everything done. And with that, I'll entertain any questions if there's any questions.
Any questions? Sure.
So
Commissioner
while
Glenn.
it's good news that the pension burden has gone down, what do you attribute those positive changes to?
Those are actuarially determined numbers, Commissioner Glenn, and those things can change. The market conditions are one thing that plays in, and experience and mortality factors. So I couldn't tell you what that was without doing a little bit more research on that.
Sort of an insurance adjuster type
Mhm.
thing. And this may be better to ask Ms. Hamrick, but our bond rating's at A1. What do we need to do to get it up to the next level? Are we close?
Just keep doing what you're doing.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Hearing none, I'll make a motion to accept the audit report. Could I have a second, please?
Second.
Any further discussion, additions, or deletions? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome to stay all you long as you want.
Well, I am hungry, and I'm going to go down to Colby's and get me something to eat.
Save me a seat, will you?
I may still be there. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Item 4C, I'd like the board to consider these appointments. You want me to read them, or you want me to read them? Owensboro Parks and Recreation Advisory Board appoint Reggie Helm to a 2-year term expiring November the 2nd, 2026. Human Relations Commission appoint Christopher Johnson and Anthony Cobb to a 3-year term effective December the 3rd, 2024. Audubon Area Community Service Board of Directors reappoint Chief James Howard to serve as the mayor's designee to a 4-year term effective January the 1st, 2025. Brad Regional Transportation Committee reappoint Kevin Culligan to a 1-year term effective January the 1st, 2025. Green River District Board of Health reappoint Brent Kelly to a 2-year term effective January the 1st, 2025. Owensboro Area Shelter and Information Services Oasis Board reappoint Deputy Chief J.D. Winkler to a 3-year term effective January the 1st, 2025. Owensboro Metropolitan Board of Adjustments reappoint Ruth Ann Mason to a 4-year term effective January the 1st, 2025. And the Owensboro Tourist Commission and Owensboro Tourist and Convention Commission appoint Angela Waniger to fill the remainder of an unexpired term which ends December the 1st, 2026, replacing Whitney McFarland. I'll make a motion to approve these appointments. Could I have a second, please?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, I've been scolded by the boss. I'm gonna go back to 4B. Consider approval of the minutes dated November the 19th, 2024. I'll make a motion to approve. Could I have a second, please?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you, Ms. Cecil. Item 5, ordinance. This is a roll call vote. Ms. Davis.
Ordinance 18-2024, an ordinance amending Chapter 3, Article 1, Section 3-8 of the Owensboro Municipal Code to expand the sale of alcoholic beverages on St. Patrick's Day, when that holiday falls on a Sunday, from 6 a.m. until 2 a.m. the following day. Amending Article 2, Section 3-29 to include payment of transient room tax as a condition for issuing or renewing a license. Amending Article 2, Section 3-31 to allow for the issuance of a limited golf course license and to eliminate references to license fees charged for prior years, and amending various other sections of the Alcoholic Beverage Control Ordinance to make corrections and revisions to statutory references. Read for approval on second reading this 3rd day of December, 2024.
Thank you. I'll make a motion. Could I have a second, please?
Second.
City Manager?
Yes, sir, Mayor. This is second reading of an ordinance making changes to the city's alcohol regulations. There are 2 primary changes. One is to allow expanded hours for alcohol sales when St. Patrick's Day is on a Sunday, And we've previously done this for when New Year's Eve and Christmas Eve fall on Sunday as well. And the second meaningful change is to create an a limited golf course license. As the name suggests, it's specific to only golf courses. This is a newly created license at the state level, and so we are adding it to our ordinance because we have not done so to this point. And then after approved, we plan to utilize this particular license at Ben Halls and Hillcrest golf courses. Other than those two changes that are substantive, the other are all cleanup items and really not anything of consequence.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Commissioner Smith Wright?
Yes, thank you, Mayor.
You will.
What is the reason for St. Patrick's Day, compared to Valentine's Day?
Really, that was just done at a request of 2 or 3 local businesses downtown in particular, and so I guess they try to have more of a event, if you will, whereas if St. Patrick's Day is more romantic, that's more of a celebration type of a holiday on St. Patrick's Day. So it was at the request of a local business downtown.
Okay.
Did you want to include Valentine's Day?
We can always come back and amend it if we get that request. They've slowly trickled in over the last couple of years, so it may be coming.
Okay. Any other comments? City Clerk, please roll call us.
Commissioner Smith Wright?
Aye.
Commissioner Neesmith?
Aye.
Mayor Watson?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Caslen?
Yes.
Commissioner Glenn?
Yes. Thank you. Motion is approved. Item 6, please. Ordinance. There will be no vote.
Ordinance 19-2024, an ordinance creating new sections of Chapter 16, Article 3, Division 4 of the Owensboro Municipal Code entitled Transient Room Tax to establish definitions and to clarify the registration requirement, amending Section 16-70.35 to accurately state the types of occupancy subject to the transient room tax, amending Section 16-70.38 to set forth uses of transient room tax, amending Section 16-70.39 to establish that party receiving rent must pay the transient room tax and comply with the ordinance, and amending Sections 16-70.40 and 16-70.41 to improve legibility and establish a deadline for compliance. Introduced and publicly read on first reading this 3rd day of December 2024.
Thank you. City Manager?
Yes, Mayor. So for approximately 2 years now, the city has been collecting transient room taxes, or sometimes called a bed tax or hotel motel tax, depending on where you live. Transient room tax is assessed on hotels or renters of hotels and similar lodgings, including short-term rentals brokered online, such as through Airbnb, Vrbo, and similar platforms. This is first reading of changes to our transient room tax ordinance based on lessons learned since we began collecting the tax approximately 2 years ago. In particular, changes are driven by the continued failure of Airbnb to remit the tax, which presents an inequity compared to other entities which comply with the ordinance and remit the tax as required. So with their involvement and leadership on this issue, City Attorney Mark Pfeiffer, Director of Finance and Support Services Angela Waniger will lead the discussion, and I believe the City Attorney is up first for his portion of the presentation.
That's right, Nate. If you'll recall, I think it was August 2 of 2022, the Board of Commissioners passed an ordinance establishing the transient room tax. The purpose of the revised ordinance is to ensure that all short-term rentals are paying the tax. The new revised ordinance will include definitions of the terms broker, host, and rent. Will change who's responsible for collecting and remitting the tax, and it will clarify the registration requirements, and Angela will go over those registration requirements with you. The transient room tax is established by Kentucky statute. The current rate is 4%, and there is no change to that rate under the revised ordinance. If you'll recall, the revenue from the transient room tax is used to enhance tourism in Owensboro, and specifically in the revised ordinance, we'll have language that says it is used to finance the cost of acquisition, construction, operation, and maintenance facilities useful in the attraction and promotion of tourist and convention business. And so a place like the indoor sports complex would be one that we could use transient room tax revenue for. What is considered rent? Rent is now defined to include all charges and fees for services necessary to facilitate the rental, and it includes items like cleaning fees, pet fees, and any other similar fees, even if they're stated separately from rent on the bill. And the purpose of that is to prevent the problem of disguised rent, where some of these other fees are increased, which would basically minimize the amount that's actually denoted as rent and would make less tax revenue available. And so we're broadening that definition to include all of those items as rent. The biggest change in the revised ordinance is who is responsible for the tax. If you'll recall, under the old ordinance, it was the host participant or owner who was responsible for paying the tax, unless there was an agreement between the broker and the city for the broker to pay that. There was never any agreement reached with Airbnb to remit that tax, even though some of these other entities were, like VRBO and Expedia. Now, under the revised ordinance, the party receiving the rent, whether that's the host or the broker, will be responsible for collecting and paying the tax to the city. Broker, under this statute, will be defined as any person, business group, or organization that facilitates or solicits a short-term rental, and specifically included in the definition of broker are VRBO, Airbnb, and Expedia. I'll pass this along to Angela.
Thanks, Mark. On to the finance aspect of the transit room tax. We are going to require registration by each of the hosts. And the registration in many other cities, most other cities require the short-term rental registration, and they charge a fee for that. So we will now be requiring that each host register with the city. We will not charge for that form. So that form will be available on the city's website next week. And if anyone wants a form sooner than Monday of next week, you may contact City Hall and ask for the finance department, and we'll get one to you here in the next few days, or when you call. The registration form will ask for all of the usual information. It'll ask for the name, address, and contact information. It'll want each short-term rental unit to be identified on the form, identified by address. As I mentioned earlier, there will be no cost to file on the registration form with the city. This registration will be valid for 1 year. So it's only good for 12 months, and it'll have to be renewed annually. If you have changes throughout the year, whether you are deleting a rental unit or adding another rental unit, you will be required to also update the form at that point. We're giving everyone time to get the registration filed with the city. We'll have second reading December 17th, but we're going to allow up until March 1st of 2025 for everyone to be compliant with getting that registration form filed with the city. And I have to stress that this word gets out, that failing to comply with that March 1st deadline will result in fines up to $500. So for in addition to registering with the city, we also have another form. This form will be filed monthly with the finance department. This form is currently available on the city's website at owensboro.org on the finance page. This form must be filed with the finance department whether there's any activity or not. Payment will be accompanied with the form. This form must be filed for each rental unit for short-term rentals. The hotels fill the form out, one form per hotel. The form is due to the city by the last day of each month for the previous month's activity. For now, this is a manual process. We are working on implementing an updated system that will allow for filing the monthly returns online. As Mark briefed earlier, the party receiving the rent is responsible for submitting the taxes. And I say unless, and that's all uppercase, the party receiving the rent is a broker and is not remitting the taxes to the city. So by example, what that means is if you use a broker such as Airbnb and Airbnb is not collecting and remitting those taxes to the city, the host will then be responsible for those taxes. So it's imperative that for each host, if you're using a broker to facilitate your business, it's imperative that you follow up with that broker. I'm guessing that there's statements that the broker would give to each host showing the rent they collected and the activity. And I would encourage the host to follow up with the city with the activity on that statement to ensure the city is in fact getting those funds from Airbnb, because currently we're not, and that means the host will be responsible. If anyone has any questions on that, obviously we're happy to assist with those questions.
I have kind of a question.
Yes, Mayor.
Who's going to be responsible for enforcing that?
Me and Mark.
So y'all going to go out and give them a citation? You just mail it to them? How's that work?
Well, we'll send them a letter, and we can impose a fine on them.
Okay. I just, it seems kind of complicated to me, and not being.
Yeah, and it is, Mayor. And like Nate said, it's a learning process, stepping out and developing the protocol. These hosts also have to have a business license. And our ordinance for the business license states that if a taxpayer is not compliant with all the forms and processes required by the city, their business license is not considered good. It's not active, and they're in bad standing with the city. So then there is another process then where we go in, and if we have to, we'll shut down the business. Hopefully we don't get to that point.
Commissioner Smith, right, please.
Isn't there a way that people are doing this and you don't know? I mean, they may not have a business license, but they're still renting out their homes as for Airbnb, for recreation and that kind of stuff. I mean, how do you know? I'm just trying to figure out how you know that every single person who's doing this are on the up and up.
If I can answer that.
Sure.
There's no perfect formula. We've worked really, really, really hard, and Mark Calitri here with the CVB has a protocol and has a subscription to the AirDNA. It's not related to Airbnb, where they collect information on how many short-term rentals the city has, and with his help through that information. We've done a lot of research, and Whitney McFarland, I have to give her credit for being the boots on the ground with that. We've looked at, she's used Google Maps. We've compared with the tax department on business licensing. She's even gotten in her car and driven around with another coworker, so one's looking and one's driving, to identify all the rentals that we have out there. And so I would encourage anyone that is aware of a rental, like Commissioner Nesmith shared one with me earlier today, and I looked, and sure enough, that one was not on our list. So it will be added to our list. And so it's a great question, because there is no perfect science, but we're drilling down and doing comparatives as much as we can. We also, in our tax system, have ways of tracking types of businesses, and there's been several renters out there who would rent monthly, like you would rent an apartment. Mm-hmm. And they have come to find out you can make more money with a short-term rental. So they've kind of converted. So we're trying to track those two separately and keep them identified as such. So we're learning as we go, but we have a list. We have a pretty comprehensive list of individuals that we think are out there. And they advertise on Facebook. They advertise in different ways, shapes, and forms. And so people help by submitting that information to us. If I see it, I can take a picture of it on my phone and come back to work and check it. And so it's just hunt and seek, kind of like we do with our business license. There's no perfect formula there also. We just do the best we can in identifying people.
I just remember that someone sent me a picture of a man laying in the lawn a couple of years ago, I guess. And the neighbor was saying that, I've been living here all this time, and I never knew this was an Airbnb. And the person that was laying in the lawn decided that, you know, he's renting that as an Airbnb, and that's where he wanted to sleep, was out in the front yard. I was going like, what?
That's on Christie Place, wasn't it?
No, it wasn't. Oh.
Okay.
Well, so to proceed with the presentation, so just wanted to state that to give the kudos where they're deserved, the VRBO and Expedia are collecting and remitting tax to the city. We're getting reports from them monthly along with a check. The city has no agreement yet with Airbnb. We've reached out to them several times, phone calls, voicemails, emails, and not getting any feedback from them. So as a result, we've got homes being rented through Airbnb, and those individuals are not paying their tax into the city. And to me, it's all about fairness and equity. If you own a business, you've got to pay your taxes, and regardless of what business that is, but also to be in parity with the hotels, that this needs to be paid. So for the next slide, what else do I need to do as a host? And it's big letters kind of to stress the point, because it seems like there's already so much. And we talked about this earlier, and that's just to obtain a business license. And I'd like to think that most people have the business license. But then again, you know, it's all about communication and information. And this presentation is our attempt to get that information out to everybody so that they know that they need to do these things. And if there's confusion, we're more than happy to help anyone through that. And if someone needs a business license, they can call City Hall. They can call our tax department at 687-8600 to get an application for a business license. Or they can go online and get that form as well on the finance page on our website. So the cost of noncompliance, and this is our last slide. So failure, as we mentioned earlier, failure to timely register with the city is a fine of up to $500. We mentioned the monthly filing and payment of activity. When those are late, there's going to be a 10% fine on the revenue with a minimum of $25, and then we'll have the monthly interest at a rate of 0.5% per month for each month it's late. Violation of any provision of the division, meaning the ordinance, is up to $500 for each and every offense. So I hope everyone out there gets this word, and I hope they take it serious, because we're serious about it. We gave a presentation a year ago hoping to get the word out, and so we're trying again to get that word out, and with the registration and this list that we've worked up, we've come a long way, I think, in achieving that. So if anyone has any questions, they can reach out to Mark Pfeiffer, our city attorney, and his email address is here on the slide, or they can reach out to me as well. And if anyone else has any other questions, I'm happy to.
Commissioner Glenn?
First of all, I want to commend you on including the other fees. Having traveled all over the world using Airbnb, I can tell you that that's where they nail you, is the cleaning fee. So one dorky question is, do we have access to their websites? Because I would think it'd be very easy to get a lay of the land if you just go in, because you type in a city and they'll have every possible location that's open on a given date available to you, and that ought to be able to track it. I assume you're doing that now, right? I'm looking at both.
As I understand,
like if you go into the Airbnb website and pretended you were traveling and typed in Owensboro, Kentucky, or created an account and did that. Have you guys done that? I assume you have, right?
I am under the assumption that when someone books a room, you don't even have the specific address until you've paid for it. And so there's really no way for us to get to that. But the ordinance, this ordinance, and the occupational ordinance gives us the authority to do an audit of any host, any taxpayer out there. Should we suspect that they're not filing or reporting properly, that we reserve that right legally to go in and review their books. And so that's provided for in the ordinance as well.
Yeah, because they usually won't let you know they won't let you know the total fees till you book. And that's when you get all these other fees, is when you actually commit and say, I want to book that date. That's a problem for you, because it hides how much they would have. And then the last question I have is, so do we have other legal pathways to get Airbnb to comply? Because that just doesn't seem to pass muster that they're not responding.
I know KLC is involved in a lawsuit, and I'll let Mark speak.
Okay.
Yeah,
to
there's
that.
a lawsuit currently pending in
Okay.
Franklin
That's
Circuit
it.
Court, brought by, against Airbnb on behalf of some cities, and, we're hoping that that yields some benefits. And then we also would have the authority to, fine them and file a civil action if we needed to against Airbnb if they weren't in compliance.
But Verbo and Expedia have complied?
That's correct.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
We
Thank you
also
very
have-
much. Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, we also have some individuals who are filing and paying as well.
Commissioner Castleton?
Thank you, Mayor. You mentioned the $500 fine. Now, is that going to be per property or just per property owner? If I have 4 Airbnbs, are they going to be fined $500 against each property, or would it be a one-time deal?
We're working on a scale of, but it's up to 500 for each offense. So each offense is, if you're late filing 1 month, we're not gonna charge someone $500 for being late 1 month. We've got the penalty provided for, but for habitual offenders, for those who habitually don't file, who habitually don't comply, then that's where then we'll look at charging those fines, and it's per offense.
Okay. Another thing is, I know you said that Airbnb is not complying. I'm sure that this tax is not unique to the state of Kentucky. Have they fought against other states on complying?
There was a lawsuit out of Virginia, also that did that. It's worth noting, though, that Airbnb is paying certain towns in Kentucky. They're not paying Owensboro and other towns. So it's not a consistent approach across the board.
If I could add to that, I know they're paying Bowling Green, Lexington, and Louisville, and they were paying those 3 cities prior to the state when they revised their statute back in 2023. So they're like grandfathered in, if you will, they already had the agreements, and so they're grandfathered in.
Seems like we could put a fee on them before they get started, when they first sign up, and put it in escrow and can draw off it when they make a mistake. It's simpler to me.
It's true.
Okay, any other questions on this very complex issue? No. Oh, yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Thank you
Commissioner
so much
Neesmith.
for allowing me to speak. No, actually, I just really wanted to ask Angela, because I should know this, but as a hotel, this is something that the hotels have already implemented all through town, and there's not an issue there.
That's correct. The hotels implemented September of 2022. Mm-hmm.
I just would-
Yeah.
And it is all, I've heard that it is, like, I've read some things about California's going through this lawsuit too. So it's not just Owensboro, Kentucky being mean to their citizens who are trying to raise a little extra money. So I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other comments?
Yeah, Mayor, if I could comment. So it seems a little bit enforcement heavy. A lot of those, like the monthly submittals and all that stuff, is already a requirement, like you said, that are being done by hotels and some of the owners. So on those enforcement type things and those penalties, those are something that we never levy. If you remember a year or two ago, we had to levy a similar penalty when people wouldn't take their trash toter back up to the house. And so we got all these complaints online about it's a money grab from the city. We probably have not fined anybody for that a single time, I would say, maybe minimally, probably, okay, none. And so hopefully we would find no one or assess this penalty at all. Unfortunately, there are people who violate that. Don't really like to have that enforcement arm, but it is something that we need. Hopefully it's not utilized in the future, but it is there really just for those specific incidents that it may be necessary, but hopefully it's infrequent.
Yeah, I would echo that. I think that's because this enforcement follows our occupational / net profit wording. And so we tried to be consistent with that process and the handling of it.
Any other comments? We on 6B? 6B, City Clerk.
Ordinance 20-2024, an ordinance closing alley rights-of-way between 165 Ewing Road and 2519 Pardon Avenue, and between 183 Ewing Road and 2518 Pardon Avenue in the city of Owensboro, Kentucky. Introduced and publicly read on first reading this third day of December 2024.
This is first reading of an ordinance closing an alley at the end of Pardon Lane and behind 165 and 183 Ewing Road. This particular alley was never constructed, so it's what we refer to as a paper alley. It doesn't exist except on paper. So if you drive out there, it appears to be an extension of the neighboring yards. All the contiguous property owners have provided written consent for this closure as well. You can see the area on the map there available to you, that the area of the right-of-way to be closed is the red hatched or red shaded areas there. And so the property owners at one on the Ewing Road side there on the left have requested the closures. The adjoining property owners have consented. And so we have that for your consideration today.
Seems like we're having a lot of those alley closures lately.
We have been, you know, it seems like probably almost one a month here recently. I don't really know why, if there's any particular reason, if maybe some people want to do a project at their house, or maybe some people just see us doing this and realize they may have one as well. So most of them, there's really no improvement there or asphalt or anything in place. So it's an easy thing to do, and they can expand their yard, and it removes a future liability perhaps on behalf of the city.
Any other comments? Okay. 7A, municipal orders.
Municipal Order 34-2024, a municipal order approving a 2.5% cost of living increase for all eligible pension annuitants under the closed City Employees Pension Fund. Read for approval on one reading this third day of December 2024.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve this. Could I have a second, please?
Second.
City Manager?
This municipal order authorizes a 2.5% cost of living adjustment for pensioners of the closed city employee pension plan. This is a closed legacy plan. It is not our current retirement program that Mac referenced in his audit report. And so we have no current employees in this plan at all. It's been closed for decades, really. The 2.5% cost of living adjustment was recommended by the board of their plan at their last meeting, and they met last month. Last year, a 3.2% cost of living adjustment was provided. The plan has 10 remaining members, which is down from 13 at this time last year. This plan is financially sound, so all proceeds given to the pensioners come from investments and funds within the program.
Okay, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 All opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Let's go to 7B, please.
Municipal Order 35-2024, a municipal order approving a 2.5% cost of living increase for eligible annuitants of the Owensboro Police and Firefighters Retirement Fund, closed. Read for approval on one reading this third day of December 2024.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve this. Could I have a second, please? City Manager?
Like the last item, this municipal order approves the annual cost of living increase for a closed legacy pension plan. This item is for the closed police and fire pension plan, and it also provides a 2.5% cost of living adjustment for its members. This pension is closed and has no assets, so we provide the obligation from the general fund budget every year. We just budget that annually. It has no assets in the plan. And this particular program has 20 members that remain, down from 26 at this time last year.
Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye, please.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Item 7C, please.
Municipal Order 36-2024, a municipal order authorizing and directing the mayor to execute a government resources accelerating needed transformation grant program of 2024, project application for up to $450,000 with the Cabinet for Economic Development for use by Owensboro Municipal Utilities in the Mizcan Inc. expansion project. Read for approval on one reading this third day of December 2024.
Thank you. I'll make a motion to approve this. Could I have a second, please?
Second.
City manager?
As I'm sure you all recall, in July, Mizcan announced a $156 million expansion and investment of their local operation on Ragu Drive. As part of the project, Mizcan needs to increase the water supply to their facility. This municipal order approves a grant application for OMU on Mizcan's behalf, which, if successful, would provide about 50% of the cost of their water line project. The city is just a pass-through for this grant, and we have no other obligations. And we do have a representative from GRAD here should you have any specific questions. But it's a pretty easy thing we can do to hopefully help the company out with their project here that is very much appreciated.
Certainly is. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Thank you. City manager items?
Yes, sir, Mayor, if you would acknowledge Angela Waninger to present the October financial report.
I acknowledge Angela.
Thank you, Mayor. So the PowerPoint presentation will be solely on the general fund activity for the month of and the 4 months ended October 2024. You may refer to page 3 of the financial packet for more detail. Also, wanted to add that I apologize for the timing of this report. It's sometimes hard based on when the commission meetings occur in the month, and we have to wait for financial information from other entities that are implemented into our financials, and so we're one meeting later with these. So for the first slide, in the month of October, actual revenues of $10,524,950 were higher than the budgeted revenues of $9,926,177. resulting in a positive variance of $598,773. This variance is primarily due to higher occupational withholding, net profits, and property tax, and it was offset by lower insurance license fees due to timing. So for the year-to-date revenues for the general fund, actual revenues were $26,010,304. They were higher than the budgeted revenues of $25,084,079 for a positive variance of $926,225. This variance is primarily due to higher net profits, partially offset by lower occupational withholding, which I will say I still think is due to timing. So for the month of October for expenditures, actuals were $5,537,860. They were less than budgeted expenditures of $6,033,638 for a variance of $495,778. This is primarily due to savings in lower personnel services and timing in maintenance. For the 4 months ended October, fiscal year-to-date actual expenditures were $24,390,550, less than budgeted of $29,834,952, for a variance of $5,444,402. This variance is primarily due to savings in personnel services and more so due to timing and transfers to OMU from the ARPA monies and maintenance and supplies. So for our last slide is a bar graph, and it represents the city's monthly revenues and expenses and demonstrates how cyclical they are. The expenses reflected by the red bar typically outpace revenues in the warmer months when the outdoor activities are in full swing. Likewise, we have months where revenues, as depicted by the green bar, outpace expenditures in the months of October and November due to collection of property taxes, and in the month of April due to collection of net profits. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to file for the report from the commission, please.
Second.
Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Item 8B, please.
Yes, personnel appointments for new hire probationary status, Ashley Agata, probationary full-time, non-civil service appointment to administrative aide with finance and support services effective December 17th. And Sarah Henry, probationary full-time, non-civil service appointment to laborer, maintenance helper with the grounds department effective December 9th. And promotional probationary, we have Aaron Brown, probationary full-time, non-civil service promotional appointment to maintenance equipment operator with the street department effective December 15th. And then finally, one regular status appointment, which is an employee who has finished their probationary period, and that is Rodney Roberts, regular full-time, non-civil service appointment to property maintenance inspector with property maintenance department effective December 17th.
Thank you. I'll make a motion to approve these personnel appointments. Could I have a second, please?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Thank you. City manager comments?
Nothing tonight, Mayor. No other comments.
Good. Communication from elected officials. Commissioner Smith-Wright.
I don't have anything, Mayor.
Commissioner Neesmith.
Just want to say that I had the opportunity to visit the Greater Ebenezer Temple Church on Sunday night, and I just want to give a shout out to them. They were celebrating Pastor Moore and his wife's service with the temple for 30 years. And one of the other more exciting things was they were actually burning their mortgage for the church. And if you know about smaller churches, being able to burn your mortgage is a significant accomplishment. It is in that church there very much it's God and Jesus and the Holy Spirit. And after the first about 45 minutes of some really good old gospel singing music, I was very able to give your mayor's award of distinction because if you didn't have the Holy Spirit after that, you're never going to get it. So just want to give them a shout out. So just a wonderful community member and how they contributed and just say thank you.
About how long was the service?
I was there about 3 hours.
That's what I thought. Excellent day. Commissioner Glenn?
Yes, just wanted to compliment our airport. Had a family member fly out of there on con tour in the last couple of days. Had a good experience from what I was told. Want to encourage everybody to support the Good Fellows. It's a big community charity, and they'll have their event, I believe, on Friday down at Owensboro Christian Church. And then I want to recognize two people, souls who passed in the last week who were very important members of our community in our region. Father Ed Bradley, who I got to know over the last decade, very impressive, contributed to our community and a man of faith. And then Charlie Camuff, who is a major supporter of Catholic schools in Brescia. They'll both be dearly missed. That's all I've got.
Commissioner Cashman?
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to say that I drove by Legion Park and Parks Department has the lights up and looking bright. Just want to thank them for taking the action that they did, and also to throw a compliment out there for the lights downtown on the riverfront. They also look beautiful and kind of exciting. I drove by the Sportsplex on the way here, and I see quite a bit of groundwork going on and look forward to seeing construction starting in the near future. And even though I'm leaving office, I hope I get an invitation for that ribbon cutting. That's
$5.
yeah, I'll put that on my account, man. Thank you.
You're welcome. We had a great Christmas parade last week before last, whenever it was. I'd like to thank the fire department for figuring out a way to get me up in that bucket. My wife and I, we rode in the bucket and like to froze to death, but it was a really well-attended parade. I mean, it was a lot better than I think last year. I guess because it wasn't as cold, but really thanks the guys at OFD for their help. And to piggyback, Father Bradley was a great friend to a lot of people in Owensboro, and he certainly will be missed. And there's going to be some services for him at St. Stephen tomorrow and Thursday. So if anybody wants to attend, I'm sure you'll be more than welcome. Open public forum. Members of the audience may address the Board of Commissioners on any matter of public concern that was not on tonight's agenda. Comments are limited to issues within the scope and responsibility of the commission. Commission meetings are held to conduct city business for the benefit of Owensboro citizens and taxpayers. This time, anyone who wishes to address the Board of Commissioners, please make their way to the podium to be recognized. Speakers must state their name and address for the clerk's record, and then limit their remarks to 3 minutes or less. Since the item's not on the agenda, no response is required from the staff or the commissioners. Anybody want to talk? Okay, entertain a motion to adjourn. Could I have a second, please?
Second.
We are adjourned. All in favor, yes.
Aye.